Hey everybody. Just today, I just want to talk briefly about initiative and whether we need it or not, and the different types that are out there. So, just got a short list to get through here today. This will be my last video for the year, as it is New Year's Eve. Happy New Year and all that fun stuff. Hope everybody had a good Christmas or winter holiday, whatever you want to call it. But initiative. So there's a lot of different systems that are out there for initiative, and a lot of them I don't know if we really need them anymore. I like some of them. I've used a lot of different kinds, and I just want to briefly go through some of them today, and then figure out from there. But first thing is rolling once per combat. That's generally how most of the modern games work. Is you roll some sort of dexterity check or reflex or initiative roll or whatever it is. Just roll it, and then whoever has the highest roll goes first, and next highest, and so on and so forth. And they complete their action, then the next person, then the next person. I'm not a huge fan of doing that, because I know it's the way we've been doing it for years, and a lot of people like that way. But the problem is generally everybody has to roll, and then you have to assign an order, or keep track of that order, or you have to. What I used to do is just count down from, say, 20, and then people would raise their hand and say, "Okay, that's me," or whatever, and then they would go and go from there. And then you just keep going like that, and eventually you'd catch who goes where and in the order, and you can kind of figure it out. So that kind of works, but then you have the issue of some people wanting to go before other people and things like that. But that works. I don't think it's a huge waste of time, but it does take a little bit to roll the die, have everybody have their numbers ready, and all of that. I mean, if you have a couple combats per game session, and rolling initiative takes a minute, I mean, it's a few minutes off your game, which, I mean, can amount to something. But if you're playing a 6-hour session, it probably doesn't matter. But if you're only playing for a couple hours, those few minutes can sometimes make a difference. Rolling every round. This is something that the old school games used to do. So you would basically roll a d6, and then the NPCs would roll a d6, and then whoever was higher would go first. In some cases, if the roll would be the same, then all the actions would happen simultaneously. So if the PCs had a higher number, and you hit, say, the goblin, and you killed it, then that's it. It wouldn't get an attack. But if initiative was the same, then you would attack the goblin, and it would attack you. So you can kind of both take each other out at the same time. I'm not a fan of rolling every round. It does add a degree of complexity to the game, where every round you don't know whether you're going to get another turn before the bad guys go. So it's always, down to that die roll every round. So the bad guys could get 2 rounds, 2 attacks in a row, because they can roll high, or they can roll low the first time and then high the second time. So players would go, and then the bad guys would go twice, and then the players would go. So, or vice versa, players could get, two attacks in a row, same way, and then can totally just overrun the bad guys. So me personally, I'm not a huge fan of that, for the same reason that I've said before. It takes a while. Every round you're rolling a new initiative, and then everybody kind of acts in whatever order they like. I like that, but rolling every round just seems to take away from the combat in the game. It takes away from the speed and it seeming lethal, and kind of takes away from that story. So I'm not a big fan of it. Also, yeah, don't tell any of my players, but I kind of stopped using initiative. I kind of like slowly phased it out. Like at one point, I would have everybody roll, and then instead of going in that order, whoever got the highest roll, I would just start with them and then go clockwise from there. And then I started to just narratively make sense of what was going on. So they would enter a room, And maybe I would roll for surprise, maybe not. And then I would just say, hey, you enter the room first. You see, this is what's going on. What do you do? And, whatever. It might be some cultists playing cards, right? But maybe they're trying to fight the cultists. So maybe if it's the fighter, he doesn't like the cultists, so he's going to go in and he's going to, smash the table or start, hitting on the cultists or whatever. And so, I mean, that would just happen. It was okay, yeah, just do it. But if the cultists knew they were coming, maybe he'd open the door and they'd be ready and he'd get ambushed. So, and then just whatever I felt was right at the time. Like if they were stuck in the doorway, then the players kind of behind them wouldn't get to act until the next round. And I would just keep going around the table like that. And it just seems to flow pretty naturally. The other... So, yeah, there's a lot of different things. Sometimes you just got to do whatever feels natural. So just roll with it. Like if somebody wants to do something and they say, hey, I'm going to do this thing, and then somebody else is like, okay, I want to cast this spell or whatever, just let it happen. You don't have to stop that. Like I love that, where the players are engaged so much that they just want to keep doing things. I don't want to say, whoa, stop what you're doing and let's roll the dice and figure all that out. Like while they're in the thing, in that kind of game mode where they're saying, hey, I want to cast this spell and I want to shoot at this guy. Like just let them do it, see what happens. The clockwise rules, that's what I go with now. Basically, I haven't exactly told my players this. I kind of just do it and nobody questions it. Seems to work. Whoever is kind of in the lead generally gets to act first, or I just kind of judge it based on what they do. Maybe I'll make them make a perception check, and then if they fail it, then the bad guys will get the jump on them, and then I'll just go clockwise around the table. And that's it. And obviously when it gets back to me, that's when the bad guys go. Sometimes if there's a large group of bad guys, I may split them up. If there's like cultists and then a cult leader, I might have the cult leader go on my turn and the cultists go halfway around the table. So if I have 4 players, after 2 players go, I'll have the cultists go there. The other, but just going clockwise just makes it a lot easier than just having to figure out in what order you're going to go and whatnot. I know there's systems like the Fantasy Flight, Star Wars, and their Genesis systems that you roll initiative and you get a slot basically. So whatever the order is, you don't get put into that slot, but any PC can go in. So that's kind of neat. So I would use index cards for that. I love index cards. We'll do another video on that in the future. But I would just pile them up and have them labeled as PC1, PC2, PC3, PC4, NPC1, NPC2. And then if there was a boss, if Vader showed up, I'd put Vader on a card and he'd be on his own initiative. And then I would just go through them. I just cycle through the cards and say, okay, PC1, who's going to go? And then any player goes. And then PC2, and then maybe an NPC1, and I would get to pick what bad guy went, and then so on and so forth until you get to the end of the round, and then you just keep going like that. That works out okay. I'm not completely opposed to it. If you have something where you have a stack of index cards and you're just cycling through them, I think it's easier to kind of see. Again, though, the rolling, especially with that system, with the proprietary dice and whatnot, it takes a few seconds more for each player to roll and figure out what they got. And I don't know, it just seems to take away time from the game. And I know it's only a few seconds and it doesn't seem like much, but in the big picture of things, when you're in your mind ready for combat and ready to go, and then you have to kind of stop because you have to figure out what order everybody's going to go in, I think you lose something. You're pulled out of the immersion for long enough where it causes some issues. Like I'd rather the players just be stuck in the game and immersed in what's going on instead of having to pull out and roll the dice and go from there. So the other system that I like that I found in the Sentinels of the Multiverse RPG is that, and I believe it shows up in other systems, whoever the current player is gets to decide who goes next. So you would like roll for first, or somebody would just act first, and then that person gets to decide what enemy group or what player gets to go. And the great thing about that is you can go through, and the players, like the first time you do it, they will always go through and say, yeah, we'll make the players go, make the players go, make the players go. And, all the players will go. And then they'll say, okay, now the bad guys can go. And then what the bad guys will do is they will go through all of their attacks and their actions. And then they will say, okay, so for the start of the next round, we're going to have this group of bad guys go. And then they're going to make the other group of bad guys go. And then, so basically, it's like what I was saying before with rolling every round, only they can do that. And then usually you can do that once with the players, and then they go, oh, I see what happened. And then they kind of figure out, hey, if we let the bad guys go in between here, we let the first group go here and the main group go here, then at the end of the round, then we get to dictate who's going to start the next round and kind of split it up, and it works out. So I kind of like that method. If you're going to use that method, I would suggest having an index card. Again, I'm crazy for index cards. I run my games and everything on index cards. We'll have a separate video for that. I'll have to figure out how to get my other camera, which is here, it's kind of, you can't see it, but I got to get that set up so that it is down in front of me and you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to show you how I use the index cards. I use them for combat and everything. But for initiative, it's great. You can have the player names written down, one on each card, and then those you have for forever. And then generally you have ones that'll have NPC group 1, NPC group 2, or you could just, whatever. I just use a Sharpie and just write it out because I buy index cards in September when the school stuff goes on sale, and I'll just buy packages and packages of them. And I love it, but that's another story. So we'll do. I promise we'll do an index card video at some point. But yeah, and then you just have it, and then as each player goes, you have a marker in there, one index card that says like round. Mine says round because I know that's when it goes to the next round. And then you just, whoever goes, you just flip that index card to the back, and then everything in front of that marker goes. You can use a colored index card, whatever, and then everybody in front of it, that they still have yet to act this turn. Everybody behind it is already gone, and then when you get to that marker card, you just bring that to the back, and then you just go on from there, so on and so forth. And I think that's the system that I'm going to use from now on, although right now I'm telling you, clockwise, just going clockwise around the table with whoever acts first, and then just go clockwise from there. That works out great. I would suggest, hey, try it. Don't even tell your players, because players plug your ears for a second. But look, let's be honest, GMs, right? Like, players do not want to try new things or anything that changes the rules or things like that. Maybe not all of them, some of them, but just try it. Try it. Just do it. Let the guy go, and then just keep doing. Whoever wants to do stuff, let him just do it, and just keep going around the table and see what happens. Let me know. Let me know in the comments below if that worked for you, if you try it, if you hate it, whatever. Let me know what initiative method you use and what works for you, especially if there's something that I didn't touch on. And we'll go from there. So we'll catch you guys on the next one. That's New Year's Eve. So, well, for me anyway, New Year's Eve 2021. So it's going to be 2022 in 5 hours for me. And so we'll see you guys next year. So have a happy new year. Don't get too messed up and all of that wonderful, fun advice. And we'll see you guys on the next one. So take care.